This film is a homegrown production. It was born really out of this piece that was commissioned by the Dallas Symphony Orchestra called Gamelan de Drum. I'm a member of a world percussion group called De Drum. We've been together over 20 years here in Dallas. Percussionists that are with the Dallas Symphony, with SMU, University of North Texas. We've been around a while and have a pretty deep experience as professional percussionists and drummers. And the story goes that we've just got together to play for our own enjoyment. We started traveling around the world. We started finding instruments. We studied with master drummers and percussionists around the world. We came back home, brought it back home, created a sound, and the Dallas Symphony heard it and decided to commission a work, a concerto, for us to perform with the symphony. That was in 2007. So we had to find a composer, and we found Stewart Copeland, the drummer with the Police. Why not? Another drummer, you know, he speaks our language. So we started working on this. It took 2.5 years to create 35 minutes of music. We were supposed to have 4 rehearsals and 3 concerts with the Dallas Symphony in February of 2011. That was the same week as the Super Bowl. You all might remember that terrible storm that hit, and it really just about killed the whole thing. Well, I've been a composer and a music producer for many years, so I've worked in film for a lot of years, and I've watched my good friends who are editors and producers and directors pull their hair out and go through all the things that you go through with making a film, so I should have known better. But it landed on me, you know, because I called my pals up and I said, hey, this cool thing is happening, you want to bring your camera over and shoot it. I don't have any money, you know, but you know, they owed me a favor, I owed them a favor. We just worked off of favors for many years. So Mark Birnbaum and Ken Mandel, who are veteran filmmakers in this area, have been around forever, they showed up with their cameras and documented this whole process, this whole 2.5-year process. Rehearsals, recording, and then finally we get to the Meyerson and the snowstorm hits, and it looks like it's going to kill the whole thing. So we documented all of that, the rehearsals with the orchestra, and of course the concert itself that did, you know, here's the alert, we got the concert, one concert. So that's how we got it all. So then the film sat on my shelf, you know, all this footage sat for a couple of years until I became aware of Kickstarter. And I called up Stewart and I said, hey, you know, we might can raise some money to make a film, because we got the footage, got to do some interviews and follow up stuff, but it's always money that stops somebody from doing that, you know. And so we raised $95,000 on a Kickstarter campaign. People from around the world, 348 people contributed to this. Fans of Stewart Copeland, fans of the symphony, fans of De Drum, fans of world percussion. It came in and made it possible. So then I was in a corner. I had to do it. I had no escape. So I learned, you know, off of my experience of watching films being made and taking part in creating the music for films. I had to go a little bit further and, you know, learn how to edit, learn how to produce, learn how to coordinate, learn the ins and outs of film production, you know, and I had about 1.5 years or so to do that, and so here we are. Any questions? Yes.
Yes. What is it about the Indonesian gamelan style drum?
I skipped right over that, didn't I? Yeah, the gamelan aspect of this, a huge aspect. It's the sweet spot of this whole thing, because in our travels we spent a lot of time in Bali and Java, where gamelan music is what you hear over there. And gamelan simply means orchestra or group or music. It doesn't mean anything too specific, but it's their word for a band, you know. And it is a very charming music and a very challenging music for percussionists. Percussionists eat it up because it is difficult. It's very difficult, and it's illogical to our Western ear. So we jumped on it and learned it, and got instruments, had instruments custom made for this piece eventually. But when Stewart came in and saw our instruments and heard what we played, he immediately gravitated to the gamelan. We were a little bit like, oh no, you don't want to see that over there, you know, because we were afraid this music is so foreign to the Western ear, and the instruments are not in tune with Western orchestral instruments. So it was going to be a huge challenge to make this work. And of course, Stewart, being a punk rocker, that's his nature, he went straight for that. Let's do the gamelan. So that's what happened. Yes?
How many people showed up for the concert?
It was full, packed house. Yeah. We only got, you know, people had bought tickets for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday got wiped out, Friday got wiped out. A lot of those people could not come on Saturday because they work or had something else going on. But, you know, it was filled to the rafters. And you see that in the film.
Since you work in the educational field, what was your biggest learning experience through this whole process?
Okay, as a music producer, as a musician, what I'm accustomed to is hearing a song, getting with a group of musicians, hopefully great ones, going into a recording studio and hitting it. And the first thing that comes out of this effort is usually something magical, usually something wonderful, something that you go, oh man, that is great. We love this. Then the goal becomes, the mission becomes, do not screw this up with overdubs and guitar solos and background vocals and strings. Don't screw up that immediate initial beauty. How do you do that? That's the challenge. With film, it's exactly the opposite. For me, you have bits and pieces of things. It's a jigsaw puzzle. You don't know what you have. You don't have an idea. There's no feeling of wonder and beauty in the beginning. There's no feeling of inspiration that you have fuel to drive you to finish it. It's tough. It's work. And it's about editing these pieces together and trying to figure out what's my story and how do I go from here to there. It is hard, man. It is work, you know, because music, there just seems to be, it's much more subjective, and you can grab onto this initial beauty and ride it all the way through. With film, with making this film, it had to reveal itself to me, and only did I receive that same feeling at the end of my process rather than at the beginning of my process. Yes?
Do you have any idea of the kind of the total amount of footage that after 2 years of filming created?
Yeah. So far as the footage of us rehearsing and recording in the studio and getting ready and rehearsing with the orchestra, I would say there was probably about 25 or 30 hours of that. Then I had to do interviews. Then I had to flesh out this story. So I went to LA and I interviewed Stewart, about 6 hours. I had Jenny Martin, who is a great filmmaker, help with this, and she interviewed the guys in the band. She had done a film on the band before for KERA. So we got another probably 20 hours there. And then I interviewed Maestro Jaap van Zweden, which was a little bit nerve-wracking and challenging, but turned out great. And that was just about, you know, we got about an hour with him. And boy, if you get an hour with Jaap van Zweden, you are a lucky person, you know. So, and then you got to get, you know, some other footage, some stock footage that fills in the gaps and illustrates what you're trying to say. So that was about it. You know, I'm not challenged by editing music because I've been doing it for a long time. I'm extremely challenged editing film and dialogue and story because, you know, you first of all, you have to learn how to edit. You have to learn, nowadays you just have to have a software that you can manage. And again, I've been watching editors for many years, and I know what their techniques are, and I know what their usual tactic is to go about it. But they knew the software and they knew how to do it. You know, they've been doing it forever. So what I had to do was, and it wasn't my intent to be the editor on this film, but I had the footage. I knew where all the bones were buried. So I learned Final Cut 10, which is great for beginning editors. Pro editors are running away from it. You know, they're all insulted because it changed so much from 7 to 10 to become more friendly to non-professional editors. But I'll tell you right now, this film wouldn't exist if it were not for Final Cut 10. Not in the form it is anyway, you know. So anyway, I just kept going and going and going, and the challenge was, you know, how do I get through all of this stuff and find a link? And it's just hard work. You just keep chopping and slicing and things will evolve, and then I'll play it for some people and I go, no, that part's terrible, this is good, you know. And so it was kind of funny because I wasn't thinking about the music in the beginning. I was thinking about the visuals and thinking about the story, because that was my challenge. The music I knew, that was not an issue. And then Mark Birnbaum said to me, you know, when I was frustrated one day, I was talking to him about it, he said, look, man, he said, let the music lead your editing. And a light went off. And then I found the best parts of the music that I thought really drove this story, and I let the story jump on top of the music. And that became more clear at that point.
We have time for one more question.
Two, go ahead. Quick, two quick ones.
Since you have such a good history knowing the drum world and the music world here in Texas,
Yeah.
can you talk a bit more about just how massive and talented there are people here? I mean, it seems like this is a hub of music.
Yeah, you know, it's great, and you know, Dallas gets short shrift sometimes because Austin's right down the road and everybody's looking at that, and Dallas is not a music center, it's not a music business center, but with the University of North Texas and all the different great schools like SMU that have great music students, and there's a rich history in Dallas of music. And so, yes, there are many great musicians, there are many great drummers here. I have to follow that up with, there are great musicians and there are great drummers everywhere you go. You just have to seek them out. They're there, you know, you've never heard of them before. There are people in Bali and Java that are so scary good, you just want to throw your sticks down and never touch them again, you know? And you'll find that anywhere, especially Cuba, India, Africa. You go to these places that are percussion heavy, man, it's intimidating. And the film talks a lot about the brotherhood of drummers, and there is a deep brotherhood of drummers. And in November of this year in San Antonio, there'll be the Percussive Art Society convention where about 8,000 drummers come together at one time in one place. And we're going to be performing this work, Gamelan to Drum, with the San Antonio Symphony at that convention, and hopefully this film will play in some venue for that convention also. Yes?
What do you think makes drumming so interesting on film compared to any other musical performance?
Well, you know, clarinet players didn't get together to make this film, and violinists didn't get together to make this film, and conductors didn't get together to make this film. Drummers have a sense, like I said, there's a brotherhood, and there is just an outward visual emotion that comes out of drumming. It's very deep, it's very tribalistic, and it's visual. And it's fun. There's a reaction when you hit a drum. The stick flies off the drum. You know, it's just a very basic kind of satisfaction that happens with drumming. So, you know, that's what we're trying to get across to everybody else in this film.